I'm Gemma, and this is a chat with Gemma. So, I thought I'd talk about the young bride and, young girls who are thinking that one day they would like to get married. And I think that young girls are not really ever educated in what that's going to be like, and I think they should be, and boys too. And I've lived a long time. When I was young, I can remember sitting on a train and being, 17 or something, and listening to a group of schoolboys talking about some girl who was not there with them, and thinking, I can't stand guys. They I don't know whether they were aware of me being there, but they were talking like, clearly boys talk when a girl's not around, and that was an education, yeah. And so move forward to more recent times. Now I'm an old lady, and I often go to a cafe for a cappuccino, and I sit down and I want to relax and enjoy myself. And in walks a group of guys and sits down at the table next to me. And I'm not impressed then either. I really don't want to listen to the things that they say. The way they talk. Yeah, it really does put you off males generally. Now, fortunately, I've met enough nice guys in my life, and I have lots of male relatives who are good guys, to sort of know, there's another side to this coin. But unfortunately, I think a lot of girls are perhaps a little bit bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they jump into marriage with some fella, or in the modern way they might shack up, as my dad used to call it, together, and then she works out that, he's not quite what she thought he'd be. And of course, in my day, girls grew up watching romantic movies, reading romantic books. You'd go to the cinema, and might not be a romantic movie, but somewhere in there would be some romance. And so you grew up thinking that, one day I'll meet a guy, and he'll be, of course, very handsome, and he'll think that I'm very beautiful, I'm not really, and he will love me more than he loves anybody else in the world, and we'd be prepared to die for me or do anything for me. And we all know, I think, us older folks by now, that that's unrealistic. And like now, if I was to think about, if I was a guy looking at myself, I don't know that I'd find myself that lovable that, I'd just be spending every minute going like this, looking at myself. I don't think anybody's that lovable, really. And so there's that. So girls grow up having that expectation. Also, in my day, girls didn't play sport much, and they didn't sort of... I'm generalising. Obviously there were girls that were well into sport, had horses or something like that completely occupied them, or dances and stuff like that. But for the most part, girls were just thinking about going towards one day being married, and probably by the age of 9 were ready to do that, and not having any idea what men are really, and what it was all about. and but had this sort of, pretty picture in mind, all misty with a little heart-shaped frame around it. And so off they went into life. The boys tended to be doing all these activities and I don't think they were thinking about marriage at all. And eventually they wake up to the fact that maybe they'd like to get married, and that's what people do. Maybe they'll do that as well and have some children, and maybe they half-heartedly went into that whole life. Not really being that excited about it. So then, you go forward to today, and I think girls are probably a little bit more knowledgeable about things, and so are boys, of course. But I still think this kind of happens a bit where girls are thinking that they're going to have a guy who's going to love them just so much, and just going to everything they want them to do, and just drop everything if they need anything. And when they get married, their husband doesn't do any of that. And maybe the guys have a little bit of that as well, where they think, oh, I'm going to have this wife, she's going to look after me, she's going to make me lovely meals, and maybe she'll even just massage my shoulders occasionally when I've come home from playing football, and all of that. And she doesn't know how to cook, and she's not really... She massages his shoulders a couple of times, and then her hands get too tired doing that, so she's not really into it. And so they both got these pictures that don't get fulfilled. And I've worked with a lot of young men over the years, and I do look at some of them and think, and seeing young men grow up, and you kind of look at some of them and think, yeah, now he's going to be all right, he's going to be ready to go. And then others, they might be of a legal adult age, but I'm not at all sure that they have quite grown into a full mature person just yet. And you think, oh, he's got a girlfriend, and he's about to get married, and, I just don't know what he's going to be to his wife. Because, well, if I can tell a little story, I think I've told this before, but there was a lovely girl I knew, and she was very pretty, like a little doll. And I think she was pregnant at the time. She'd had one child and, fairly newly married, and she was onto her second pregnancy. And she unfortunately got the flu really badly, and she was really sick. And she was disgusted with her husband. When she was back at work and everything, she, asked her how she was and everything. It was like that was more than he'd done for her. And I do wonder too, sometimes some guys, I know in my family, I don't think my father ever got the flu in his life, whereas I've had the flu lots of times, unfortunately, and been very sick, and could imagine what it was like to die from it too, I can tell you. Whereas my brothers, I don't think, have sort of gotten sick like that so much. And it's possible her husband had never had the flu and just thought she had a cold. So there can be misunderstandings that occur, and people need to have dialogue and tell the other one what's going on up here, because the other one is probably not I'm guessing, probably not a skilled mind reader. And don't expect them to just magically have that skill. So, but I was actually worried about the marriage. And I mean, as far as I know, they did stay together because I saw them years later. And she was really seriously disgusted with her husband. And so, yeah, I think some of these young guys, you do wonder if after the wonderful wedding is over and all the beautiful things have gone, that she kind of finds out that she's sort of on her own if she gets sick. A lot of women, when they go and have to be driven to hospital to have their first child, have to kind of tell their husband, darling, pick up my bag, put it in the car, get me into the car, put the key in the ignition and drive the car, because he's just not coping. And in so many, back in my father's day, nobody went into no fathers ever went into the delivery room, but now of course they do. And so many new fathers have required more medical attention than the new mother because they have passed out onto the floor. And, all of that. And one friend of mine, her husband just put his head in his hands and said, "Oh, stop her screaming, somebody stop her screaming, please." And was just, again, completely let her down. And they did get unfortunately divorced after that. He was just out of his mind and wasn't coping, and he wasn't the man she thought he would be. And of course, that is reality, isn't it? So many men are just no good in those situations, and with time they can learn, but they need somebody to teach them. I think boys and girls should be at school and at home educated on how to get married, how to be a wife, how to be a mother, and be prepared for some of these things and not be so anxious, shocked and all of that, and have some idea of what to do, what not to do, how to cope, how to broach a subject without offending the other one, all of that sort of thing. And, women do have that picture of the man as being this sort of wonderful person. And I can remember my mother sort of talking about how, after you're married, you realise that picture's disappears and you have this new person there as your husband that's not anything like what you pictured when you were dreaming and reading your books and watching your movies. So I would hope that young girls would get from this that it would be well worthwhile looking at perhaps your current boyfriend or any boy you're thinking of taking on, and just sort of picturing the future. It's not all about the young things that happen and the excitement and the hormones going and, I'm just so besotted with him and all of that. Look to the future and how much use would he be to you when you're going through childbirth? How much use would he be to you if you were really sick and you would like somebody to take the day off work and look after you? Would he just say, "Oh no, honey, I've got to go to work," because he's so work-oriented and driven by money? And maybe broach those topics, get to know this human being before you kind of leap into marriage with him. All right, and I certainly wish you the best, and God bless you. Bye for now.